Hey, what's up, guys? LudoMan24 here with another video, and today I'm doing a new thing called Creepypasta Reads. Now this may be a two-parter since this is a really long creepypasta. I just kind of skimmed through it, scroll down the list. And today we're going to be doing the Russian Sleep Experiment. Now, some of you may know this creepypasta, and some of you may not. I don't want to waste my time talking about random crap you guys probably don't care about. So yeah, let's get started. 5 Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them, since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed circuit cameras, so they had only microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows into the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books coasts to sleep on, but no bedding, running water and toilet, and enough dried food to last all five for over a month. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained and had been promised falsely that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past, and the general tone of their conversations took a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about circumstances and events that led them to where they were and started to demonstrate severe paranoia and stopped talking to each other, and began alternately whispering to the microphones and one-way mirrored portals. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of their experimenters by turning over their comrades, the other subjects, in captivity with them. The first researchers suspected that this was an effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber, repeatedly yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight. He continued attempting to scream, but he was only able to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers postulated, I can't read very well, that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about his behavior is how the other captives reacted to it, or rather, they didn't react to it. They continued whispering into the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The 2 non-screaming captives took the books apart and smeared page after page with their own faces and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes and the screaming promptly stopped. So did the whispering to the microphones. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since they thought that it was impossible that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, this was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives, and were afraid they were either dead or vegetables. They announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphone. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Components will earn one of you your imminent freedom." To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice response: "We will no longer be freed. We no longer want to be freed." The debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. Hope you can hear me, guys. Sorry. I'll talk a little bit louder. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air. Immediately the voices from the microphones began to object. Three different voices began begging as a pleading for the life of loved ones to turn the gas back on. The chamber was open, and the soldiers sent to receive the subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could directly call the state of that any of them in life. The food rations past day 5 had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subjects' thighs and chest stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber, blocking the drain and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of their muscle and skin torn away from their bodies, and destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth, as the researchers intentionally thought. Stuff. Closer examination of the position had the angles of the wounds indicated that most if not all of them were self-inflicted. The abdominal organs below the rib cage of all 4 test subjects had been removed, while the heart, lungs, and diaphragm remained in place. The skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribs had been ripped off, exposing the lungs to the rib cage. The blood vessels and the organs remained intact. They had just been taken out and laid on the floor. Fanning out the I don't know what this is, excavated, I think, but still living bodies of the subjects. The digestive tract of all 4 could be seen to be digesting food. It would quickly become apparent that what they were digesting was their own flesh they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber and alternately begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fell asleep. To everyone's surprise, the test subject put up a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers had died from having his throat ripped out. Another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off, and an artery in his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth. Ew. Another 5 of the soldiers lost their lives, if you count ones that committed suicide in the weeks following the incident. In the struggle of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and he bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this was proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the human dose of a morphine derivative and still fought like a concert animal, breaking the ribs and arm of one doctor. When the heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he had bled out to the point where there was more air in his vascular system than blood, even after it stopped, he continued to scream and failed for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in reach, just repeating the word "more" over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell silent. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility with 2 intact vocal cords, continuously begging for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative that had given him to prepare him for the surgery. He fought fiercely and against his restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way through a 4-inch wide leather strap on his wrist, even through the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist as well. It took only a little more anesthetics than normal to put him under, and and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. In the autopsy of the test subjects that had died on the operating table, it was found that his blood had tripled the normal level of oxygen. His muscles were still attached to his skeleton, but his skeleton were badly torn, and he had 9 broken bones in his struggle to not be subdued. Yeah, most of them were from the force his own muscles had exerted on them. Oh, I got 10 minutes. The second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords destroyed. He was unable to beg or object to the surgery. He only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval. Then the acidic gas was brought near him. And did not. Oh, sorry. He shook his head yes when someone suggested reluctantly. Then they tried the surgery without anesthetics. He did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon presiding stated repeatedly that it should be medically impossible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assisted the surgery and stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times when his eyes met hers. Oh. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must be something of dramatic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched so the patient could write his message. It was simple: keep cutting. The other 2 test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetics as well. Both had been injected with a paralytic for the duration of the surgery. The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in an abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they had wanted to be given the gas again. The only response was given. I must remain awake. All 3 subjects' restraints were. Oh God. All 3 test subjects were all 3 test subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back into the chamber, waiting determination as to what should be done with them. I'm going to stop here for a second. My drink just spilled. And I'm back. Okay, let's do this again. The researchers faced the wrath of their military benefactors for having failed the stated goals for their project, considering euthanize the surviving subjects. The commanding officer and ex-KGB instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. Researchers strongly objected, but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, subjects were connected to an EEG monitor, and their restraints padded along for long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all 3 stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas. It was obvious at this point all 3 were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might. First left, then right, then left again, for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly, having been the first to be wired for EEG. Most of the researchers were monitoring his brainwaves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if he were really suffering brain death before returning to normal. As they focus on paper